Well, hello again, everybody. This is another new edition of Celtics Beat, and for better or worse, probably for better, it's the final one of the 2021 calendar year. Everyone is eager to put the 2021 Celtics behind them, and that goes back to last season as well. And, we can look ahead to 2022. Maybe things are better in the new year, I hope, because what we know right now is fresh off 2 straight losses, 3 out of 4. As we sit here on this Wednesday, the Celtics, they remain mediocre and bound for the play-in tournament if they're so lucky as to get that far. But I will stand by what I have said before, which is if the C's are so fortunate to sit basically 500 at New Year's Day, things are okay. They're going to be okay, because honestly, I probably wouldn't have been surprised if you told me they were 6 or 7 games under by that point. I'm Adam Kaufman, Evan Valenti here as always. And for the first time on this show, he has clamored for 2 years. He has texted me. He has said, when can I be on Celtics Beat? When do I get my opportunity to riff on the C's, to pound hot takes as it relates to the Boston Celtics? When can I be on this podcast, Adam Kaufman? And I said, you know what, Brendan Glasheen, you can be on the podcast as soon as you have something connected to the Celtics that we all need to hear. So you know what he did? He went out and became the voice of the Maine Celtics, and I couldn't keep him away anymore. He is now the G League voice of the Maine Celtics. In addition to that, does a great number of things. Let's see. Let's run down the resume real quick. Voice of the Connecticut Sun, of course, WNBA, big deal. He does some Action Network stuff. Of course, DraftKings, he and I do some stuff together. 98.5, the sports hubby, gives you out the takes, the host, the headlines, all that good stuff. NLL Game of the Week for ESPN. Albany Firewolves calls games for them as part of the NLL as well. He likes to play dress up. You can see it on social media. He likes to TikTok, and he cozies up with a Fast and the Furious blankie every single night. He is Brendan Glasheen. Glash, how are you, man?
The primary reason why I took the Maine Celtics job was for this podcast. That's the first thing I thought of.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, that's
get me on Celtics Beat now. I have some clout.
It is great to have you here. How's the gig going? Because this was only announced in the last 2-3 weeks at this point.
Yeah, their former voice left mid-season. He took another job, and I'd had some discussions with them in the past about possibilities if something ever opened up, and it opened up. And we've had 2 games. Their latest 2 have been postponed due to the pandemic. So we're not playing New Year's Eve, and we're not playing on Sunday the 2nd. So we're back January 9th. So it's been good, though. They played the same team 2 days in a row, the Nets affiliate, the Long Island Nets. Mm-hmm. And it was pretty cool to watch Broderick Thomas, Sam Hauser, 2 two-way guys on the first night. Then they got called up. And yeah, it's been kind of a roller coaster. All of these G League names are now bouncing in and out of the NBA.
Well, that's the thing. Like you say that you guys are paused for the pandemic. That's kind of true, but really the bigger thing is you guys are paused because the whole roster, along with everybody else in the G League, has been called up to the NBA on all these 10-day hardship deals. You guys don't have anyone to go out and play. You're going to need to sign the 3 of us.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, Cornette went to the Cavs. Theo Pinson went to the Mavericks. You got two-way guys going up and down. The Celtics have had two-way guys on the other side, and their recent games give them trouble. So it's been kind of cool for these G League players to get an opportunity, but it's not in the best fashion considering that this COVID won't go away. So
I know this is not it's not something we'll spend a long time on because there are more pressing things as it relates to the Boston Celtics that people obviously want to talk about. But for the Maine Celtics, once you guys do get back at it, and these games for people that have not been paying attention, the ones that you've been doing anyway, they've been on NBC Sports Boston, so available for people to watch. Certainly people should do so, get a look at what the future, at least in part, may look like. It doesn't work the same way as, say, like AAA hockey, where, you really are looking at prospects that go up and like, this is the future of your organization. The G League, as we all know, it's not built that way, but you do see some, good young talents out of college that eventually find their way into role player opportunities on NBA rosters, as we're seeing right now. Just talk to us, because we don't spend any time on this show talking about the Maine Celtics until right now with you on it. So what should the people know? What should the people be excited about, for this team, for this roster, for, as it just, again, relates to all things Celtics fandom.
From a big picture standpoint, one of the first things Ime Udoka said when he took the head coaching job with the Celtics was he does find some importance in the G League development, and that holds true with, if you look at San Antonio and their roster, the Spurs, there are some G League talents that did shine at that level and then took the next steps moving up. So there definitely is more being invested into the NBA G League. That's a great first step. And then just from the actual basketball sense, another quote from Ime Udoka when he was introduced as head coach of the Boston Celtics, if you want to get those assists up. Well, Jarrell Christian, who is the first-year head coach of the Maine Celtics, he used to be with the Wizards G League affiliate, the Capital City Go-Go. Something he's implemented here with the Maine Celtics is they want to not only push the pace, but wants those assists to be up. And going into the Las Vegas showcase, which took place last week, the Maine Celtics led the G League in assists. They led the league in offensive rating, led the league in scoring. So they were doing a lot of great things as it pertains to moving the basketball. They play a very fast brand of basketball. They had the second best record in the G League going into the showcase at 9-1. They split their series with Long Island. So it's an unselfish brand of basketball. And I say that with a smirk because that's what we're hoping for out of the parent club. It actually is a really fun brand of basketball they're playing. They're playing the small confines of the Expo in Portland, Maine. But it's a fun brand of basketball. They push the ball. They're unselfish. Their bigs can pass. Cornette has demonstrated that. Jawan Morgan, who is a player who played in the bubble as a playoff player in the Utah-Denver series a couple of years ago. So they've got some guys here that are on the cusp of being full-time pros, but considering that league, you'd think, oh, well, you're going to just give the ball to the two best players, arguably the two-way guys, and they're going to get theirs, and they're going to get called up, and then everyone else just tries to become the next them. They actually play a very good brand of basketball, team-oriented.
But be honest, you're devastated you missed out on Taco Fall.
Yeah, that's true. Missed out on Taco. I will say this, too. There are rumors of Isaiah Thomas making a G League or an NBA return and perhaps maybe signing a G League contract. I know the news is broke. He's signed with the Mavericks. Yeah. I was like, ooh, that'd be cool if Isaiah Thomas started his NBA comeback with the Maine Celtics. But I don't think that's happening.
It's just a 10-day deal left. The dream doesn't have to be dead yet, right?
Possibly. I mean, he picked another team again over the Celtics. Not to say he didn't pick it over the Celtics. We don't know if the Celtics actually.
Yeah, he might not have had the offer.
Right. So we'll see. Maybe. Who knows?
There have been
Hold out hope, things. Evan. Hold out hope.
There's been crazier things. I'm hopeful. I'm just glad that IT's hanging around. It's always interesting listening to him talk about Boston, the love between him and the city. It's something that it's hard to even kind of describe as C's fans. If you're not a C's fan, you weren't there to watch and witness the guy battle. Like every fan base wants a guy that battles, right? And everybody sort of glorifies some sort of guy. I mean, look at the Red Sox where the more pine tar you had in your helmet, a la Trot Nixon, the cooler you were, within the fan base, right? So, everybody has that kind of guy. Isaiah's always been that guy for Boston. And look, if he ends up in Maine, holy cow, it would be fun. I don't think he'll end up with Glash, to be frankly honest with you. I think he
might get offended by that if he's with Maine and not the Boston club. He'll look at the Boston club and say, don't you guys kind of need my help. I don't think I need to give the Maine team help. They need my help. Big club. I
mean, we'll see what happens with Schroeder. At some point, there's always obviously the sexy name on the trade market for the Celtics is Schroeder, and Pritchard's been playing a lot better lately. But considering how COVID is like just gone through the entire league like this, you might need another point guard, and Isaiah would be a guy that, again, would at the very minimum would sell tickets, right? Like that's at the very minimum. Either place, Maine, Boston, doesn't matter. The Garden or Maine would go absolutely bananas to have Isaiah Thomas back in the building. I mean, I might even make the trek to Maine if I had to watch Isaiah Thomas play for the Maine Celtics.
I got access to 4 tickets a night, so
there you go.
More than welcome.
Celtics beat on location.
Honestly, we should do like a pregame. If Isaiah were play for the Maine Celtics, we should do like a pregame show, Adam.
I'm sure we'd be the only ones
in the parking lot and the tailgate scene that I'm sure would be unbelievable.
You wouldn't have Boston stations driving there. You wouldn't have the Garden Report there.
No, CLNS would be there for sure.
You know, that actually could, you're onto something there, Koff. You don't think that news outlets from around here would go and watch him?
100% they would. 100%.
They would, right? Okay.
I mean, unless
there
was like, it was a Sunday and there was a Patriots game or something. But
right.
if it was open on the schedule, if it was, the Bruins were still postponed for the third week in a row, and there's nothing going on with the Red Sox, and it's an off day for the Patriots. And like, if it just lined up on this random Thursday night, 100%, 2-hour easy drive to Portland. Absolutely.
All right, over, do some beer runs. It'd be a fun time. We can make a full day out of it. I would do it. Look, Koff, if it happens, I'm there. I'll be there.
I will strongly consider it. I will give you that much. Easy for me to say now.
I'll have Glash.
He's on his way to Sacramento. He's playing for Dallas tonight. So we'll see.
We all can dream.
Yeah, we can dream. We talked about it off air. I think we've mentioned it maybe in part on this show, or if we hadn't, I'll do it right now. Everybody's talking about it. It's this team's inability to close, guys, which is in and of itself the most frustrating thing. A perfect example was that Minnesota game the other night where they were up. I don't even remember how much they were up, but they were up by a ton in the second half. And I got on the, FaceTime with a couple buddies of mine I hadn't caught up with in a while. And look at the Celtics right now. And I thought to myself, I didn't even say it out loud. I thought to myself, yeah, they're good. Like, yeah, I know this team. I know, but like not with this depleted Timberwolves roster. They're good. They're fine. Instantly 7-0 run. Instant. Was it I don't even actually, I take it back. It wasn't Minnesota. It was the Milwaukee game right before that, with Giannis when he went crazy there in the fourth quarter. Either way, we've all had these moments during this season where we're just stricken by the fact that this team cannot close. Chris Forsberg, NBC Sports Boston, good friend of the show, put out some stats. I don't think this will surprise anybody, but it is still jarring to hear, so I will read them to you. Boston is 6-13 in clutch games, which is when the score is within 5 points in the final 5 minutes. That's just this season, 6-13. And then over the last 2 years, 23-39.
Wow.
That is a win percentage of like 350, 360, something like that. It is just, I don't know what it is, guys. I don't know what it is that this team is specifically missing within an ability to close a game, to finish a game, to just be confident at the end of games. It just feels like, and Glash, I'm sure in your talk radio stuff that you're doing at the Sports Hub, getting plenty of shifts around the holidays here. It's something you guys have probably been talking about as well. There are so many concerns, so many complaints about this team and around this team. And what do you do about the future? Nobody has a clear-cut answer, though. Nobody has you have to do this. It's not like it's trade Tatum, trade Brown, trade Smart, trade Schroeder, trade, fire May. There's no answer that makes absolute sense and provides you clarity for the path that they go on for the future. We don't know. It is a giant guessing game, and it puts Brad Stevens in a very unenviable situation.
Yeah, it sure does. Look, I'll tell you what changes at the end is they don't have an offense. Like they take turns. Tatum and Brown take turns. Your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn. They go away. I look at the last two games, Timberwolves game and the Bucks game. Look at their assists at halftime in that Bucks game. 16 of their 21 made field goals in the first half were assisted. Like the ball was humming around the perimeter, inside, outside. No one worrying about who had the ball in their hands. And in the Timberwolves game, of course, the first time they're without Tatum, Jaylen Brown turned the ball over 6 times. And I'm not sure how much of the game you watched, but his turnovers were like there's never a good turnover, but
sure.
they were bad. Like misunderstanding a cutter, like just a simple like V cut by Pritchard at the top of the key just to get open to separate from his defender, throws it out of bounds. And there were a few of those where I'm like, Jaylen Brown looks lost, like he's never passed before. They just systematically, I know you've talked about Udoka before, you wonder like, never mind the talent and can the two stars coexist? Is Smart a problem? But do they have an actual system in place where if someone goes out, which now everyone in the league is dealing with, can you just plug the next guy in or give superstar B, superstar A responsibilities and keep the ship rolling? And it looks like they can for the first half, and then bam, third quarter, big run by Minnesota. They're back in or fourth quarter, excuse me. Big run in the fourth quarter. It's a game. And they just go away from what worked. Their last big shot in the Minnesota game was the Horford 3 to make it 88-84. And you felt, okay, like they've got something here. But they go away from whatever they've been doing offensively, more so in the last week. I look at the Philadelphia game, up 7, 3 minutes to go, dunzo. They hold off Cleveland, which that's a pretty good win. Cleveland's had a good year. And then these last two, their assists are up, as Ime preached in the preseason. Let's get those assists up. And then they go away from it in the second half and more so in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, it's frustrating. And it's like some of them you can understand, like you look at the Philly game and like Embiid was just ridiculous, and they don't have anybody that can really, I mean, Cantor did a decent job, as best as he could do. Nothing can do about the last shot he made, like the 18-foot fadeaway from the baseline. It's just like, all right, well, if he's going to make that shot, you're going to have to live with that. You know what I mean? That's just tough. That's really tough. The Minnesota game is a disaster. I mean, losing to Giannis, and what's so upsetting about the Milwaukee game is, again, they played beautifully in the first half. They came out in the first quarter, punched Milwaukee in the mouth when they were undermanned, held that lead into the first half. You're sitting there thinking, wow, this is gorgeous. They're playing with tempo, they're playing with pace, effort. There's just a lot of cohesion here. And then you have to expect, Giannis is going to punch you back, okay? He's the MVP of the league. He is one of the 3 best players in the world. He's probably going to have something to come back at. And as one of my favorite players in the league said a few weeks ago, he's 7'2", 280 pounds. Like, he's just going to score. There's nothing he can really do about it. You know what I mean? So he's that, again, disappointing for sure. No question. Had it there, no question. But Milwaukee, good team. It's like the losing to the Bulls early in the year, and they're up big on the Bulls. Well, guess what? The Bulls are really good, and they made a really nice run, and Boston let it slip away, and at the end, that's bad. The Minnesota game is in its own stratosphere, I think, personally. Now, I know Boston's missing guys. I know Minnesota's missing guys. But Greg Monroe said it best, like, Zach Norrell had a great game, and I don't even know who that guy is. Like, I have never met him. I've never heard it. Like, how do you lose to that team? Greg Monroe, 11-9-6. I mean, the guy still got the footwork. But that is inexcusable. Inexcusable.
The 6 is the most impressive, isn't it? He had 6 assists in his first game.
Where's that been? He hasn't had 6 assists since he was killing Syracuse in the middle of Georgetown's offense.
There it is. Yeah.
We are all Syracuse guys, but I just figured I'd put that out to the people.
People are going to turn this podcast off now.
We've been going long enough. People can just tune out at this point. That's okay if that's what they feel compelled to do. Hopefully not.
But it's just it isn't a different like that. The Minnesota game is separate than from the rest of the games.
Yeah.
And again, I know everybody's dealing with COVID stuff and protocols, and they got guys coming up from everywhere trying to fill spots.
Yeah,
totally understand that. But
no, that was an embarrassing loss of another level.
What roster was that? And I think over the course of last season and this season, we're trying to find rock bottom. And every couple of weeks, the Celtics find a new way to define the words rock and bottom. And this Minnesota loss is just out of all the things that could have happened to literally, I'm trying to find a better way to let the game get away from you. I'm trying to make it PG here. To let the game get away from you, the second half against that team is inexcusable. And everybody in that, and there was some stuff after the game too, like Jalen talked about, no comment to what Al, like, okay, so what's going on here? Like this.
Well, that's why I don't get your outlier comment, because we have heard stuff like that this year. Like one person says one thing and then another gets told what that person said, and the response is no comment,
and that's fair. I'm just meant on the in terms of all the losses.
Yeah, the loss itself is an outlier. But the post game comments and that sort of thing, that's consistent. It's consistent going back to when Brad was the head coach.
Yeah.
So you brought up the possibility of going to 500 this week. Well, I mean,
had they won in Minnesota, that would have been a real possibility.
Yeah.
But now I don't think that's going to happen.
Obviously. And we're aware too that Ayton is on the COVID list as well. So who knows if he plays Friday.
Yeah, it's a look. Would it be unlike the Celtics of recent years to go out and beat Phoenix when they've played like crap a vast majority of the season, or inconsistently? It really obviously speaks to inconsistencies. Go out and it's like a few years back when the Isaiah Thomas Celtics and Jay Crowder led Celtics would take down like Golden State at Oracle. Like, these things are not impossible.
Back to back, like they would be second team back to back, and
that's a great.
They do that.
That's great. You brought that up, because let me ask you this: you guys do this show, of course, all the time. What's the moment of the year for this team?
Oh, geez.
like calendar year. Like, go back to the beginning of the.
I don't even want to look. I don't even want to think about last year.
You can see that's the thing. You should be
Tatum,
able to just think
60,
of something.
Tatum 60 against San Antonio.
I mean, if you're thinking about
right, that run where Tatum had
undermanned Spurs,
40. He had 40 plus in like 4 out of 6 games. Like he had a run.
He had 50 against the
part of last year. That was like,
I mean, if you're thinking about it, obviously, like Glash said, if you're thinking about a singular moment, I think that works. I guess I'm thinking about one. I'm thinking about this season, but also I'm thinking about their best win, which is
and that's hard to do.
I mean, probably there was the overtime game against Milwaukee, obviously. People, and this came before, people were really excited about the overtime game in Charlotte. That was a big one at the time. We were only a handful of games in at that point.
I was kind of being sarcastic when I asked this question. My point is that none stand out. Like, there's no like.
Everybody was like drooling over themselves after the Portland win, even though like Lillard didn't even play in that game.
Maybe the loss at Utah were like, that's what we're getting at. It's
like
you don't even know.
That's what it's.
They hit so many threes, we couldn't keep up.
Right.
They've gone 4-8 since that trip started in Utah.
But the question is, so what do you do here, right? If you're Brad, like what do you do? You got the
answers the unanswerable.
Throughout the entire league, your roster's changing constantly. This team has a fourth quarter problem that they can't seem to shake. They have zero consistency, and everybody's angry. So what? I mean, you're the guy supposed to figure everything out. Part of being the either a head coach or the GM and the Pobo, so to speak. Like, your job's to figure this out.
No, I mean, I think that
if you don't start playing better team basketball, we're sending you to the G League with Glasheen. That's what we're gonna do.
You're playing for the Maine Celtics. Tell Evans Boston we said hello.
That's right.
Another Syracuse guy.
Great guy.
Look, I think there are a couple of obvious moves that I'm not saying that they will be made or even. I just mean in terms of like smaller, let's put that out there, smaller, more obvious moves that you could make. Like, you trade Dennis Schroeder. This team is not, even if it goes to the playoffs, it's not winning a championship, and Schroeder's not coming back next year. And oh, by the way, which is more important, did we need a COVID outbreak to see that Peyton Pritchard could still play? He got time under Brad Stevens. All of a sudden, Ime buried him. Another Portland guy, no less, buried him. And now we see, obviously, that, hey, turns out this guy can actually be an asset to you off the bench. Even if you want to say, and I agree with this, Peyton Pritchard, probably going to be a career role player. He's not going to be an all-star. He's not going to be probably a starter anywhere in his career, but he could hang around for a decade and give you buckets off the bench. Like, that's, be a spot starter. Fine. But at least let's let the guy develop a little bit. And same with Nesmith, obviously, and who has obviously a higher ceiling than Pritchard. Langford, if he were able to ever get right. Another guy, let's play the guys. I'm not saying you're tanking for lottery picks or anything like that, but you need to massage the situation now where you're obviously trying to keep your stars happy, provided they're both still on the roster, because they are under contract for a while. And you don't, if you're not dealing them, you want to keep them happy because they're just entering their primes. And, so in the compete for now territory, but also keep in mind the long-term vision. Schroeder, see ya. You serve no use to this team in an overly important sense, and you have an attractive deal. Get something for him. And it doesn't mean get an important, valuable piece, even if it's maybe, I don't know. I don't want to say like second round picks have enormous value, but there is something to be said for just clearing way to allow the younger guys to play and continue to develop. So you move him. If you can actually get something for Josh Richardson, who's got another deal on his contract after signing that extension in the offseason, you absolutely entertain that. Even make it a goal, make it a priority. Brad Stevens, again, we and this is where I'm being a hypocrite, guys. We spent so much time in the offseason talking about the need for for veteran help and depth off the bench. And those two guys that I just mentioned are exactly that. I couldn't have been more excited when the Celtics brought them on, but I also expected this team to be a much different looking team than what it has been this year. And yes, injuries and COVID have played a role, and this team should be a 45 or so 50 win team under like in some alternate Marvel like universe where everything happened the way it was supposed to happen, but that's not the reality that apparently we are living in. So you got to move off of these guys. You got to consider, as much as I love Al, you got to consider moving Al Horford. I do just, maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe I'm just trying to put lipstick on a pig. Maybe I'm trying to band-aid the situation. I am not ready to go to the, you have to trade one of the Jays place that some people, like to live. And I'm also not in a hurry to deal Marcus Smart. I know I'm biased. I know I like Smart more than other people do, but I'm not in a hurry to move him either. I think there are other smaller moves that can help to get this thing right. But I don't know, like Glash, maybe you disagree with all of that.
No, I think moving off of those first few pieces you mentioned are important, because, and you know what too, what it would do, it would actually not necessarily force, but we'd find out what kind of actual relationships Tatum and Brown have with Langford, Pritchard, and Nesmith. Like, I see a lot of these really good teams around the league, and that guys that came into the league around the same time, Phoenix, Golden State, I see it a bunch. And look, those are two really good teams. So maybe that's not fair. Maybe I'm overvaluing the Celtics and their young players. But I think those players you mentioned, Pritchard, Nesmith, and Langford, they're all understanding that they're not the same talents as those two, but they can be brought along if Tatum and Brown maybe put their arms around them and look at them as equals as far as people and on the floor. And you get those opportunities to do that and experiment with that if you move off of Schroeder, Richardson. I don't know if you're going to be able to get rid of Horford with the contract. That seems like it could be difficult to do. Smart.
Next year becomes like half guaranteed. So that's why Horford's contract's super valuable, because next year the guaranteed money takes a huge drop off. So you can actually get, you can move Horford and the next team can get off him pretty easy. That's the only reason why that's even a concern. Because Al's playing out of his mind. Al's been freaking fantastic.
It's been great. It's been awesome.
Yeah.
A revelation.
Yeah. And I think there's a difference between a true pro and a leader. And I think Horford's just a really good pro. I don't know if time and time again, he's been asked questions after games and he doesn't seem to have an answer either. He just keeps going out there and plays hard. And we can appreciate that, but not the answer from a leadership, galvanize the group. And maybe that's not even fair to him, but, I don't know what it is with Adam Kaufman and Marcus Smart. Just like why? Maybe I don't really get it. I just
like the Westerholm thing. Like Westerholm had to tweet this week. Like a lot of people want the Celtics to shake it up in a major way. What does that look like? And that's probably again outside of trading Jalen, which I don't think anybody wants to do, and that's including me. People think that I want to trade Jaylen Brown. I don't. I just think if you were to, like, SGA is just kind of like my favorite guy that I like, and that would be really great. However, it's either Marcus or Rob, and
I just want to mention this, like, sort of in response to what you're talking about, Ev, but more so in what Glash just said. Part of Forsberg's article, and this was true at least pre-Minnesota game, it probably hasn't changed much. The four-man lineup, well, it definitely hasn't changed because Tatum wasn't available. The four-man lineup of Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Robert Williams, Marcus Smart has a plus 12 net rating in 534 non-trash time possessions, ranks in the 96th percentile among high usage lineups, according to Clearing the Glass data. Okay, what that tells you, just in layman's terms, is Celtics are really good when those four guys are on the floor together. Like, it's not like this is a Marcus Smart problem. He just, I don't know. I think because he doesn't fill out the box score in a lot of the ways that people would like him to, or, he's gotten shot happy. He doesn't always have the best shot selection. The shooting percentages are down, and he's got a little bit of, I don't know, entitlement in his attitude at times, or at least that comes off during some of his, media availability. People are just ready to ship the guy out of town. And I don't think he is the issue.
Well, the thing to look at too is like, okay, so that's a great stat, no question. But what happens when you remove one of those guys? How bad is it crater? Because it looks like on the court it craters quite a bit. Mm-hmm. So if those core four guys are great together, and they don't spend a lot of time on the floor together, right? Because they're all in and out of certain protocols or
That's the league
or whatever.
too. That's the league
Yeah.
now.
Right.
Guys are in and out all the time.
It's just the way, but like, so why is there such a dramatic drop off when you remove one of those guys? Why can't it be like, and that's an indictment basically on everybody in that lineup. Like once you take one guy out of there, the numbers skew, and I don't have them in front of me, so I can't like obviously.
Well, or does it start? We've danced around this discussion plenty of times on past shows. Does it go back to the first year head coach? And
right.
as
That's
Glash
fair.
brought up earlier, a lack of scheme and system on,
Like plug a
quite
piece
frankly,
in,
both sides of the ball.
The same, right?
Yeah,
It should still look somewhat the same when you plug in a Pritchard, a Neesmith, or a Langford, and it doesn't, or it does, but then they go away from it in the fourth quarter of a game. Yeah. And I have no problem. Like, I get why Smart might feel some entitlement. He's the longest tenured.
He's a top 6 pick.
He's the only guy that likes to talk.
Whatever to me, but I think he's been. But I miss the Bridgie version of Marcus Smart, where every possession meant something. And I think sometimes he cares a lot on possessions, but there are other possessions where he just kind of throws it away. And I'm like, wait a minute, like that's not the guy you were 4 or 5 years ago. It feels broken.
He's never really struck me as a mail it in kind of guy.
Not mail it in, but chucking up a 3 than when maybe you shouldn't have. I just feel like that balances out a hustle play.
It can. I don't know what the answer is, and I don't think anyone out there is listening who's expecting me to know what the answer is, or Evan, or the listeners themselves.
But you can admit the least risky move if they were to shake it up. If you had to pick one of the 3, you're picking Smart.
No question.
I mean, obviously, if you're talking about just NBA futures, right? Never mind where we are right now, but NBA futures. Tatum and Brown are all-stars. They have all NBA ceilings. They have, I think most people would look at Tatum more so than Brown as having a Hall of Fame trajectory. Nobody's looking at Marcus Smart as anything more than, at his highest, all defensive first team and a guy who can be a contributor on offense, and a starter, but not, an all-star, not all of these other things that maybe there was the potential for earlier in his career when the shooting percentages were ticking up, as opposed to obviously sort of peaking and going back down. So yes, moving a Marcus Smart is the least detrimental to your roster in terms of feeling like you could exhibit a whole lot of regret down the road. But I think the question is, which again is unanswerable until he's no longer a Celtic, is what impact does it actually have? Meaning, is it also the least impactful move you can make on the floor, in the sense that, yeah, you can move Marcus Smart, but nothing's really going to change all that much. You're gonna have a few less quote unquote winning plays, hustle plays, and maybe a little bit better overall shot selection, and ultimately you're still a middling team. So right. Good on you. You traded a favorable contract, or at the very least not a bad contract, and didn't get anything that swayed you the other way in return.
I'm concerned that the play of Tatum, Brown, and/or Smart, it does not feel like it's spreading to the rest of the locker room. They don't play together. And maybe if you move a Smart, again, you might be right, but if they move Smart, maybe that opens the door for an Aaron Neesmith to have more of a, not necessarily a vocal say, but more of a say on the floor, to be a little more aggressive. Someone maybe takes that ownership of being the hustle guy. Romeo Langford, it feels like, even though he hasn't been knocking him down, he feels like he's kind of embraced a shoot off the catch guy and play good defense. Maybe they feel more confident in those roles, that type of opening occurs if they move out a Marcus Smart. But it's not, their play is not contagious to the rest of the team.
Yeah.
And that Minnesota game, to me, reeks of that. And like you've been talking about, coaching might be a problem, because in theory, you have a system in place. Next man up, a guy slides in and they should be playing in the same intensity, shouldn't be too much of a miscommunication. And man, it looked like that the other night. But that's one of many examples. And you both have mentioned it's an outlier as far as just how bad it was, but it's kind of still the same thing where we're trying to figure out like, okay, if you move off Richardson, you move Schroeder, maybe you move Smart, like, can this next wave of these first round picks, is there anything there? Is there any value to these players? And we're still wondering that.
You know what I want, guys? We can end with this, and by all means, if each of you has your own, then sprinkle them in. But call it a Christmas wish, or it's not a New Year's resolution. Maybe it's a hope for the new year. However you want to label this stupid thing. Here's all I want. Here's all I want from the Boston Celtics to then sort of gauge where we're at. And I bet this would be number one on Brad Stevens' list as well, because we haven't had it in literally years, plural years. One word.
Health.
Continuity. Just give me some continuity. Give me a month where, and I know that's probably not realistic here in health and safety protocol times, but outside of that, let's find a way to, as Adam Silver wants to, play through it, get beyond it, shorten the isolation time as the NBA and the PA are talking about. Whatever, just give me a month of seeing what this team looks like, healthy and together, and like we can. It's so lame. It feels like an excuse to sit here and say we don't feel like we know what they have, but it's true. I think that's true for a lot of different teams. That's not a Celtics specific problem, as you guys have both talked about. But we're not going to know. We're not going to have a clue what this team's potential is based on the guys that are on this roster, like the important guys. No disrespect to like the Schroeders.
Yeah, but how can you say that when they? But how can you say that though when they went on a run without Kyrie and Hayward?
How long ago was that?
I know, but it's the same players minus Rozier.
That's what's frustrating.
Right, but we basically haven't had a healthy team since then.
They haven't had a healthy team since Hayward went down 5 minutes.
That's my point. We haven't seen a healthy Celtics product since then. So if we could just, get a month and a half of seeing what this team looks like healthy, maybe we'd all be in a much better place. Or conversely, we'd sit here and say, okay, turns out it is broken. Like, it's definitively broken. It's not COVID broken or injury broken or attitude. It's broken. It needs to be fixed. We just don't know. And I'm not sure we're ever going to know. I think Brad's probably going to have to make a move before we know, because, wish all you want. This team's just not all of a sudden going to be together for a month and a half. It's again, my hope for the new year, my Christmas wish, my whatever. I just don't think it's going to happen.
My last thought would be, and I hate saying this because I hope it's not true, but we might have to start worrying about the health of, like, is Jaylen Brown, can he be healthy sustainably? Like, yeah, that's legit.
Is he made of glass?
Yeah, like, we have to start actually thinking about that, because what if he isn't, right? You're never going to get your wish, A, and B, you might miss out on an opportunity to move him, because what if the Celtics spot that problem ahead of time and go, we got to move him before he loses more value, and maybe they go get Beal, and maybe they go get Lillard. I'm just throwing out two names.
Sure,
and maybe you prove to be right. Maybe you prove to be right by getting out ahead of it and look at it and go, we had to move Jaylen, not because he's not talented, and him and Tatum get along off the floor, definitely, and they're coming along maybe on the floor. We'd like to think so. That's something you have to look at big picture too, I think, is like, because Tatum, for the most part, has been pretty good about staying healthy, not out long periods of time.
No, he plays.
An Iron Man, really. Think about it. He's an Iron Man. Tatum.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe that. Look,
he hadn't missed a game all year before entering protocols.
Yes, maybe that's what leads to the frustration on the court and why they can't figure it out. It's like they're still really young kids, and he looks at it and goes, Tatum, more specifically, I can't get into a rhythm with anybody. Like, they tell me to pass more, and then it's a new dude in and out of the lineup every night. Like, maybe that's, and he looks at it and goes, Bradley Beal's not missing games in Washington. And I think he did miss a few games this year. Lillard, of course, gets hurt for the first time in his career this year.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's what it is. So that's something they have to think about. Take talent out of it. Health is a big part of it too. Never mind the COVID, but injuries, actual injuries.
Is this your very first interview as voice of the Maine Celtics?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so good. I'm putting that out there
Exclusive.
because yeah,
Exclusive.
I don't care about that, but I want the people
I
to
do.
know, if you're listening, I want you to know that when Mike Gorman retires and Sean Grandy moves over to TV and Brendan Glasheen becomes the voice of the Boston Celtics on the radio, that we had him as soon as he entered the Celtics family. We had him first. You know, this was Celtics beat was where he came first. Get excited.
That's right. That's right. Just to piggyback off Glash's last point here, two things. One, I think we got to chill on the Ime stuff. I think he's a obviously has a part to do with some of the failures, obviously, but none of the first year head coaches are doing well right now. So it's not like it's solely his fault. There's just a lot of struggling going around. It's hard. Look, there's only, like 30, 32 jobs in the NBA. I was getting mixed up with football and basketball.
It's not a lot of jobs to coach through this COVID mess anyway.
Yeah, it's not a lot of jobs. Real tough right now to get any continuity. Like Ime has his faults, but I'm not throwing it all at Ime's feet for sure. But the other thing is, and this is to Glash's point, and I've had this kind of brewing in the back of my head for a bit, and I'll leave everybody with this. At some point, you have to start thinking about, hey, can we not be the Oklahoma City Thunder of years ago with Russ, Harden, and Westbrook? You can't figure out how to win games, because that's bad. You don't want to be those people. That's a missed opportunity. They had three first-team All-NBA guys. Is Durant the only guy that hasn't won a regular season MVP? No, Durant's won a regular season MVP. So they've all won MVPs.
He's also the only one that's won championships.
That team did go to the finals too.
Right, but they did lose to LeBron.
They lost.
They lost. Yep. So that's you do not want to be the Oklahoma City Thunder of a team that had 3 MVP winners on the same team and couldn't find a way to win a title. So just start thinking about that in the back of your head. How can they avoid being that?
Next step to that point, win a title, but then maybe even they kept Westbrook kind of by default. That they kept Westbrook by default, not because they wanted to. They tried to keep Durant, but he left. Right. So that's the other thing. Okay, fine. We didn't win with all 3 of them, but make sure you make the right call to move one or keep the right one, and then maybe keep the train moving, I guess is what you're saying.
Yep. Let's just avoid doing that. It'll be fine.
As usual, we went longer than we said we were going to. Nevertheless, it was a fun one. We hope you enjoyed it, obviously, and why not pile on some of the frustration for our last show of 2021 anyways. Brendan Glasheen, voice of the Maine Celtics. I got to tell you, Glash, it's got a nice ring to it, pal. Thank you for joining us.
For sure. You are both welcome at the Expo anytime. We're gonna do Celtics beat from Maine Celtics Day.
I love it. Can't wait for us to we'll bring our significant others and we'll take all 4 of those tickets from you. It's going to be great. Brendan Glasheen, Evan Valenti. I am Adam Kaufman. Thanks for hanging out. We'll talk to you again soon. Happy New Year. Stay healthy, stay well, and we will talk to you again in 2022.